Good afternoon, everyone. I will call the meeting to order. My name is Stephanie Jurius, the committee clerk. As the chair and vice chair have yet to be elected, in my role as committee clerk, I will call this Waste Management Strategic Advisory Committee meeting to order. First, I'm going to provide a brief, shortened protocol for electronic participation in this meeting. Recorded votes are not allowed at committee meetings. The committee chair or I will call for any objections. If you have an objection, please indicate your name and objection. If no objections are stated, the motion will be deemed to be approved. If you are participating electronically or leaving the meeting, please send an email to council@plregionca to inform that you're leaving the meeting. If you have left the meeting for any votes thereafter, you will be marked as absent. If you would like to request to speak, please email council@plregionca or select the raise hand option on WebEx. We shall now commence with the meeting roll call. Please indicate your presence by responding here when called upon. Councilor Demurla?
Present. Good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dillon? I don't see Councilor Dillon. Councilor Fortini? Okay, thank you. Chair Yanika? Has not arrived yet. Councilor Innes?
Present.
Thank you. Councilor Mahoney?
Present.
Thank you. Councilor Raz is away due to a personal matter, so she'll be marked as absent. Councilor Sinclair?
Present.
Thank you. Councilor Starr?
Present.
Thank you. We will now proceed with the election of the chair and vice chair of the committee. Could I have a motion for the election of the committee chair? Okay, Councilor Mahoney?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Don't know if it's appropriate, but I'd be happy to move Councillor Starr as chair and Councillor Innes as vice chair to remain in their positions.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion that Councillor Starr be elected as the chair of the Waste Management Strategic Advisory Committee for the remainder of the council term or until a successor is appointed by Regional Council, and that Councillor Innes be elected as the vice chair of the Waste Management Strategic Advisory Committee for the remainder of the council term or until a successor is appointed by Regional Council. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Okay. I'll just, I can't see the other councilors, so I'll just state your name. Councilor Demurla, are you in favor or opposed?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Dillon? He's not in yet. Councilor Fortini?
Absolutely.
Okay. Chair Anika's not in. Councilor Innes?
In favor.
Thank you. Councilor Mahoney?
Yes, in favor.
Thank you. Councilor Sinclair?
In favor.
Thank you. And Councilor Starr?
In favor.
Thank you, and that carries. Both motion carries. So I'll pass it on now to Councilor Starr as the committee chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that confidence vote, and welcome to day number 310. I said that this morning, day number 310, can you believe, since it was officially announced by the province of COVID lockdown. Okay, the approval of the agenda. Any changes, additions? Anyone? No, seeing none. Moved by Councillor Innes. All those in favor? Approved. Delegations. The first one we have is on 5.1. We have Nancy Milton, a citizen, regarding the townhouse waste collection and recycling blue boxes, and that's referring, of course, to 5.2 and 6.1. And Nancy, are you there someplace?
I am both here and hopefully off mute. Can you hear me okay, Mr. Starr?
Yeah, we can.
Fantastic. So yes, I'm Nancy Milton. I've lived in Mississauga now since 2002 and in the townhome complex that I live in right now for almost 11 years. I live between Mississauga Road and Clarkson Road, just north of the lake shore. And over 2 years ago, our blue bins were taken away from us, being told that because that's when the composting bins with the lids and recycling bins to other neighborhoods were dropped off, our blue boxes were taken. We were given some temporary bags to use until we ran out of them, and being told that that was going to be taken care of. I'm really big on the environment. For my children to get their volunteer hours, they've been doing it since they were 4 and 5. We run food banks, but we our food drives, but we also pick up trash. So this summer, I'm filling 2 to 3 garbage bags full of recycling and garbage a week. I've got a stroller set up that I use. I come home, I'm paying for all this out of my own pocket because we don't have recycling bins. So I got myself one of those recycling bins and they wouldn't pick it up from my driveway. So I was then hauling it 2 blocks to someone else's house who lives in the neighborhood who they'd pick it up from because they wouldn't pick it up from our townhome. The purpose of me asking to speak with you today is simply say, it's been 2 years. We were told it was temporary. We were told that you had a plan. The plastic bags are not the right step for the environment. We all know that. What else needs to happen for us to get recycling bins with lids like the rest of the community did? I emailed on this 8 months ago to get this call or this conversation with you today. What can I do as a citizen to help move this along?
Well, let me say that you're here today, and we listen, and hopefully, after Norm Lee gets through his presentation today, I think you'll be a lot happier.
I appreciate that, Mr. Starr. I'm not quite sure what to do with hopefully maybe my So will I get an update later? What happens? Yes.
We're moving ahead with a program that's going to be reinstalling or reinstituting the program. You'll see, I think normally there's alternatives also for those folks that still don't want it. We're going to have to work with that. But I think if you stay online and once we get through with Norm Lee's presentation, that's what I'm saying. I think you'll be a lot happier because between the vice chair and myself, we've heard the actual presentation is online. You can read it, and you'll see that I think it's in. Can we leave it at that for now?
What else can I do?
Well, we have to go through the process. It's not as if the chair can just say, "Okay, Nancy, we're doing it." You'll see that we have a presentation. The committee looks at it, and I think once it goes through the committee, then it goes on to council. That's the process, and you're hearing part of it, what we're doing. So I don't know if I can be any more succinct than that, but that's the process. And bear with us for a few minutes, and I think you'll have a smile on your face.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Mahoney's on. Councillor Starr, Councillor Mahoney would like to speak, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And as usual, if you can put your hands up so I can see them, otherwise, it's not working.
No, my hand was up. That's okay, though, Mr. Councillor Starr. Maybe I will just wait. I know there's another deputy as well after this, but I did just want to address, as I was one of the ones in the beginning, when we rolled out the bins to the townhouses, we did have significant concerns from residents regarding space and storage and property standards with nowhere to put the bin, which is why we put the program on hold and decided, working with staff, to work with the property management companies as well as the board of directors of condominiums to see if we could come up with solutions. So I think what Norm's presentation is going to bring forward is a bit of a solution on how we can address it. But the reason that the bins were not rolled out to all townhouses was essentially significant concerns expressed by residents as far as storage and again, bylaws with property standards. So I just did want to make that comment, and I do believe that Norm and staff have done a great job of bringing forward some alternatives. So look forward to hearing his presentation and appreciate the deputation from Nancy. And I do believe there's another one as well from a resident. So we'll go through this process, and hopefully we can answer some of those questions as to why it's been delayed. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Councillor. It's a solution we've been working on for a while. Sorry it's taken so long, but we've also had some very vehement opposition to the changes. And so, being a democratic society, we try to look at all sides. Okay, the next deputation is Monique Moe, and it's for exactly the same area of concern. Monique, are you out there someplace?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, councillors. How are you?
Good, we're doing good. Yeah, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, excellent. Again, I've got basically the same issue that Nancy was having. I had sent an email back on March 17th, 2015, asking to be a part of the CART system. They said, as Matt Mahoney was saying, that it depended on property management and also the board of directors. We're now in 2021, and I still don't have a CART system, yet I'm expected to continue to buy bags for not only my garbage, plus recycling, plus for the organics. Now, being in the condo complex, I've been in this complex for the past 16 years and been in Mississauga for 24 years. The complex that's right beside me, which is basically the same, just different property management and different board of directors, they are part of the CART system. We're right beside which the complex that I'm in, we're not a part of the CART system, which doesn't make any sense considering that the complex is big enough to have the CART system. I mean, this is something that my property taxes have been paying for and that have been requesting since 2015. My question is, why is this only solely based upon what property management and board of directors are approving or not approving? Why is not a homeowner as myself not able to have something that will benefit their household?
I can answer the question the same way I tried before, and Councilor Mahoney. We did have a program that was going to be rolled out several years ago, and that hasn't happened in totality, but it is being looked at, was looked at, and we tried to, I guess, compromise in several areas, but that's why we're here today. We brought it forward to the Waste Management Committee. We're going to hear from the director, Norm Lee, as to solutions that are being brought forward. And hopefully, after the presentation, Monique, hopefully we can do something.
Yes, it's because it's been 6 years now, almost 6 years, waiting for something to happen. And again, if my property taxes are paying for carts that I'm not able to get, does that mean we get compensation for this? It's been 6 years.
I'm not sure about the compensation so much, but we're going to work hard today to try to solve your problem. So if you can bear with us for a few minutes, Norm Lee is going to make a presentation on what we're doing and what this committee is going to be voting on, and then passing it on to council in the following weeks. So with that, maybe what I'll do, Monique, if you have completed your comments, I will turn the meeting over to Norm Lee so that he can go through his presentation. Now, before we did that, was there anybody else that did want to speak to any of the deputants? I don't see anybody there. No. Okay, Norm, if you're there, I know I see you there. You can.
Councillor Starr, it's Stephanie. If we can just move receipt of the 2 delegations before we proceed to Norm.
It's been moved by Councillor Ennis. Councillor Mahoney. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Carried. Okay, Norm, you're on the hot seat.
Thank you, Councillor Starr, and good afternoon, everybody. And I just want to say thank you to the 2 delegations, Nancy and Monique, for taking time out of their days to share their concerns with us. We have heard from, I think, 20 or 24 different people at different complexes over the last year or so with questions about when we're going to get back to converting these townhouses. So we appreciate you coming in to share your thoughts. When we rolled out the carts, and this was pointed out earlier in 2016, to the curbside customers, we included freehold townhouses, but as was said, we deferred condominium townhouse complexes until after the initial rollout. And I will say, just to be clear, I don't have a formal presentation today. I just have some speaking notes, and I'm going to walk everybody through the report that's on the agenda to let them know what's in it. So in 2017, we began converting townhouse complexes to carts, and by 2019, we had converted about half of the units in Peel to carts. In June of 2019, in response to concerns raised by residents, as was pointed out by Councillor Mahoney, there was quite a bit of pushback by residents, especially with respect to storage of the new carts. And in response to that, Council paused the rollout until further notice and asked staff to come up with some alternatives and report back to committee and council. And of course, that's why we're here today. So today's report describes the process that staff used to identify and to assess options. It recommends a number of options that we think addresses residents' concerns while meeting the region's objectives. And it also presents a proposed plan that allows individual townhouse complexes to choose the option that best suits their needs. So just on what we did, staff conducted an environmental scan of townhouse collection methods used in other Ontario municipalities. We found that municipalities used a variety of cart and bag-based programs with both manual and automated collection trucks. We also found that the method of collection for townhouse complexes was usually the same method as was used for other curbside customers. That is, if they had cart-based collection for everybody else, they had cart-based collection for townhouses, and so on. There were some one-off solutions, such as the use of large apartment-style front-end bins for some complexes that had access restrictions and couldn't accommodate the other types of collection. But those solutions were generally used as a last resort. So once we identified all these different methods and options, we criteria that kind of address the region's objectives and residents' concerns. And I'll just list what the specific criteria were so that people are aware. One of the region's objectives, of course, is to increase diversion, so that was one of the criteria. Another one was to reduce or limit contamination, especially in the blue box and green bin. We wanted to reduce wind-blown litter because historically that was a problem with litter blowing out of the blue boxes. We wanted to prevent vectors and vermin from accessing any food that's in the way, such things rodents, raccoons, rats, those sorts of animals. We need to allow for a seamless transition to extended producer responsibility in 2024 when producers take over responsibility for collecting the blue box. We wanted to allow for possible future volume-based user fees because those are under consideration now. And finally, we wanted to address residents' concerns about the storage space for the carts and the desire for a smaller green bin that could possibly be stored in the backyard and carried through the house on garbage day. That evaluation eliminated a few options from further consideration. For example, it eliminated the use of bags for garbage based on evidence that bag garbage attracts raccoons, rats, and other rodents. Bags could still be considered for recycling as an option. And of course, bags were never considered for the green bin because of the food content of that stream. The evaluation also eliminated the use of these large apartment-style front-end bins because evidence shows that they result in lower diversion and higher contamination. If we do have a condo complex where there are absolutely no other options that work, that is one that we would consider, but it would absolutely be as a last resort. So as I've been moving forward with basically two options, but each option includes some sub-options. So option one is kind of based on that current 3-cart program that we had been rolling out before 2019. But it now includes a sub-option to select a smaller green cart to address residents' concerns about storage. In this option, townhouse units could choose from 3 sizes of garbage carts. Townhouse units could individually choose from 3 sizes of blue carts. And the condo board, or the property management company, would work with the residents to get consensus on which size of green cart the entire complex would choose. And the reason for that is these different green carts require different types of collection, and it would require more than one truck to come by if there was a mixture of carts within the complex, and that would increase costs for sure, but it would also increase safety risks within the complex on collection day. So option two is very similar to option one, except the complex would be allowed to choose to have its recycling collected in bags if storage is a big concern. Storage space is a big concern for them. And again, the entire complex would have to use the blue bags to facilitate collection. So I just want to highlight 3 things before I turn it back to the committee. First, having a variety of collection methods will likely increase costs a bit. The exact cost, of course, will be dependent on the number of complexes that choose each of the options and on the prices tendered for the collection of those by contractors. But it's really expected to be a minimal amount when compared to the overall collection budget. The second, producers may not allow residents to choose the collection method for recycling when they become responsible for Blue Box program in 2024. We don't know for sure, and we won't know until the regulation is finalized this year and producers get organized and begin to procure collection services. Our expectation is, however, that they will accept bags or carts. I think their preference is for carts, but they would accept bags, I think, in complexes where cart storage is a challenge. That all said, there's no way of knowing for sure because they'll get to make their own decisions on that. Third, and perhaps most importantly, and I think it was alluded to by our delegates, not every resident will agree on the preferred option at any given complex. We saw this during the early rollout, and we expect to see it again. It's for that reason, as you see in the report, in the proposed consultation plan, we'll be relying on the condo board to make the final choice and to seek consensus amongst the residents of their complex. Of course, staff, will support them in that process. We can, COVID allowing it, we could bring carts out to the complex for people to look at, and that sort of thing. We can talk about the advantages, disadvantages, the risks, and of course, if there are restrictions due to COVID, we can do that sort of stuff virtually too. Now, given the current COVID situation, I don't think consultation would be very effective this year. So we're recommending that consultation with complexes begin in 2022 with the goal that all complexes will have chosen by the end of 2022. Now, as far as implementation timelines, some of the options under consideration are not priced in the current collection contract. So if we implement them before 2024, we would have to renegotiate prices with our current contractor, which could result in some significant costs. If we include them in the next collection contract when it goes out to tender, we would receive competitively bid prices, which are expected to be lower. So for that reason, we're recommending that the options with manual collection, so the bag collection and the smaller green cart, probably should not commence until 2024. If a complex chooses the option that we were rolling out before 2019, those are fully priced in our current contract, and we can do that with no increase to the price. So those could commence immediately. And then just finally, for committee's awareness, the report does note that we will be asking for one contract staff beginning in 2022 to support the consultation and the rollout of this, with the expectation that once the rollout is complete in 2024, the contract will end. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'm sure you're going to get some questions on implementation. I see the first one on the board is Councillor Sinclair and then Councillor Innes.
I guess I'm not understanding the two delegations. I thought we're quite clear. They want
Ian, we're losing you.
Consultations with people.
Councillor Sinclair, would you mind turning off your video? The audio is a bit choppy. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I did.
Yeah, we can hear.
So am I audible?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
All right. I thought the two delegations were quite clear that they wanted bin rollout right away. As far as I could tell, they have been waiting years. Now it looks like nothing will happen this year, and then consultation of some kind next year and implementation whenever. I don't know. Can I get clarification on that, please?
Sure. I guess if a complex wants the system that was being rolled out before we paused in 2019, I think if they called us and let us know that they wanted that system, we could implement that right away. You know, we have pricing to collect it. We have bins available. We have contracts for the supply of all those bins. All of that stuff is in place. Those ones we could start implementing right away. Where we run into a little bit of a challenge is if the complex is undecided and needs some help to make a decision. We could start doing virtual meetings with them to help them with their decision fairly soon. But as long as the COVID restrictions are in place, I don't think that we could, go out and bring carts and have meetings with them very safely. Although we could look at ways maybe of making that happen a little bit more safely.
Nancy Milton here, your first delegate. Sorry, I've got a 2:30 client that I've got to go to. I just want to make sure I've understood what you just said. So if I have our committee, our board, follow up with you to confirm we're in, this is the size cart we need, we can make this happen before 2024?
As far as I'm concerned, yes. Council has to make the final decision, and if they approve the report today, then we would be allowed to do that, I believe.
All right, and that's us reaching out to you directly, or is that me going through Stephanie?
That would be reaching out to our division directly, so either Paula or myself. I'm not sure if you've dealt with Paula before.
Wonderful. I haven't yet, and I will make that happen. Thank you for your time today.
Okay, you can always call me.
Hello, Norman. It's Monique, the other delegate.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you there?
Yeah, Councillor Starr, can we go through the list of questions from
Yeah, sure. Let's do that, and we'll bring Monique back. Councillor Innes.
So, Norm, I had some questions with regards to the timing of the rollout. If we're actually following our COVID vaccination rollout plan, I wouldn't see why we couldn't start the consultation process in the fall. Just we're supposed to be done our vaccinations by Canada Day, which is what our current rollout plan is. So I think that the timeline needs to be stepped up. But I do have you raised a point in it's very important in this consultation process with our residents. They are made aware of if by 2024 full producer responsibility is rolled out, this no longer is our responsibility, perhaps, and they will be forced to take part, whether they want them or not. And so my concern is, I think that we have to be cognizant of that moving forward, unless I'm not seeing it correctly, because I would hate as a counselor to say to a resident, you have a choice, and then a year later they're forced to take a cart. And in reality, from an environmental standpoint, we are, we're not doing our part for an entire year of the diversion target that we've aimed to meet as a council, because we've already proven that this part in part reach our diversion target. So I guess my question is the 2024 I know it's the contract negotiations, but I think that also coincides with full producer responsibility. Is that correct? You're muted.
That's correct, Councillor. They're both 2024. The new contracts begin in 2024, and the producer responsibility begins in 2024. And just on your point about, and producers could force condos to use carts, and we would, in any communications we have with these condo complexes, we'd be real clear that that could happen. If they choose bags today, they could have to switch to carts in the future. And one way of addressing this maybe a little bit differently would be to do the choices sequentially, where you give them option one, where they get to choose a smaller green cart. And if that works for them, then that's what they go with. And if that really still doesn't work and they have to, they need more space, then maybe they could consider the blue bag, knowing that they might not have a choice in a couple of years, but to use carts.
Okay. Is there a possibility of starting that consultation process this fall as opposed to?
I think so. We would have to kind of deal with COVID, any COVID restrictions. I may ask, and I'll just double check here, because I know a lot of the team that was working on this has now been kind of reassigned to other tasks related to COVID. So maybe I'll ask, I have a manager here who's working on this, Erwin Pasquale. Erwin, do you know, can your staff, if council wants, can they be assigned to these consultations this year to move this forward?
Yes, Norm. We can, staff has said that we can start those consultations this fall if we have to. That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
I don't know if you need an amendment, but I'd like to see the process started sooner, if possible. And because I think, we set a really big goal with our diversion target, and without all of these pieces coming together, we're never going to reach that goal. So I'd like, and it has been a positive 2019 just time. And it sounds like we may have some condo corporations or units that are going to come forward on their own, as we've heard from delegates today. But I think that we should start the consultation sooner than later. I think that there should be an education component about full producer responsibility. The fact that by 2024, this no longer is actually our, it's not entirely our responsibility, what our contract is with those producers. So if you need a motion, please let me know, and I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
I saw Andrea wildly waving your hand. And do you want to on this, or you want to let Councillor Mahoney go first, or what?
Oh, I'm certainly happy to stand by. At your invitation, I'd be pleased to speak.
Okay.
Andrea, I'm happy for you to go ahead if you have something to add to this conversation, and I will defer to you.
Andrea, go ahead.
Through you then, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to participate in the conversation. I just wanted to reiterate, this is a complex issue. Staff are certainly giving it, their full attention in terms of bringing forward, a couple of additional options for consideration. we do need council approval on these to move forward. I just wanted to temper a little bit the enthusiasm for staff to be able to undertake what I would characterize robust consultation in the fall. With best of intent, we will certainly endeavor to do that. So I want to assure you that we will do our utmost to do it, whether it be virtually or what have you. The reality, though, is that right now our number one corporate priority is the vaccination program. And we do know and anticipate that, some of our staff, even in public works, will be asked to be seconded to or to help out. So I just wanted to say, yes, we're on it, but just please be patient with us, and we'll certainly look for some creative solutions in that regard. And yeah, so thank you for all the dialogue, and particularly to the delegates, thank you for your patience. And I think I'll pass it back over to you, but I just wanted to sort of manage expectations with respect to the consultation component. Thank you.
Okay, some of us have in our vocabulary that there is no such word in the English language as no. Anyway, Councillor Mahoney.
No is not an acceptable answer. I've heard that one before. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I believe Councillor Innes touched on some of the communication consultation. The sooner we can get out in a safe way without, kind of taking staff resources when they're needed elsewhere, I certainly would support. I do just want to point out as far as previous concern. So me as an example, I received numerous petitions from condos as well as townhouse complexes. I have some townhouse complexes that don't even have garages. So their issue was they had to actually drag the bins through their house and put them in the backyard because they didn't have anywhere to store them out front. The other issue with the condo corps is their property standard bylaws. So we as a city have bylaws for single family homes where they can't leave them out front. Condos have the same bylaws within their complex. So if there's nowhere to store them and they're all out front, the condo boards were concerned that essentially they were just sitting on their front porch and really, going against that property standard bylaw, which were all challenges that staff undertook. I have a lot of townhouse complexes in my ward. I've just noted that Monique actually does live in my ward off 5th Line, and I'd be happy to work directly with Monique. We did talk to your condo board, and they were kind of split but didn't support it, but I'd be happy to work with you and go back to the board to see if we can get some more buy-in. But those were some of the challenges that we were dealing with, and again, the petitions that came in were there was a lot of petitions, a lot of, I'll call it anger, but people upset. The seniors not able to kind of be able to lift them up to store the bins. And these are all challenges that we did try to work it out. Obviously, as Councillor Innes has pointed out, our diversion targets are lofty as they should be, and we can't achieve them without, this type of a rollout. But I think that there's still some work that needs to be done on that. So Councillor Innes asked my questions about the consultation, and the sooner we can do that, the better. Having said that, Andrea has made a good point about COVID. But to Monique, who, as I know, is a Ward 8 resident, I'd be happy to work with you offline to reach out to your board to see if we can get some consensus, because I don't believe that this committee or council is against the bins, but we do need to listen to people and some of the challenges that they face, as well as some of the bylaws, be it property standards within the condo corporation bylaws. So I appreciate Norm bringing kind of some hybrid opportunities for us to look at, and happy to move forward with it. And again, to the delegate Monique, perhaps we can touch base offline and we can reach out to your condo board direct and see if we can't move the yardstick a little bit. So just some comments on that, but the sooner we can consult, the better, understanding these challenging times. So thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Matt. It'll be a pleasure to work with you with this as well. It's because I have tried, as Norman said in his presentation, that they're leaving it to the board of directors as well as property management. Well, back in March of 2015, I had sent an email to the property management who did speak to the board of members. It's been 6 years and still nothing has happened. So, I mean, if any help that I can get, I do understand that some townhouse complexes can't manage the bins because they're smaller. Not all of them are built the same way. But for the ones that can have a bin, we should be able to have that option. And I'm finding that it's very limited. The options are very limited. It's either you get the bags or you get the cart. It doesn't seem like there's a mix of whoever wants the bag can keep the bag and whoever wants the cart can have the cart.
I think you've got a very good rapport with Councillor Mahoney. I know he's going to work hard, and it looks like there's going to be maybe some individual cases that we're going to have to take a look at and work the problems out. So bear with us, and I'm sure we can work something out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have on my list looks like the last speaker, Councillor Demerla.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say a number of issues have been covered that I wanted to ask about, but I'm just seeking a little bit of clarity because I still am not sure. Is the original proposal, it looks like it's been moved, but it's not clear to me, for 2024 triggered because of our inability to do consultations, or is it because that's when we transition over to a new contract? It wasn't quite clear, or was it a combination of both? Could someone answer that?
Norm, we can't hear you.
I believe Norm's trying to answer and he's on mute.
Norm, yeah.
Okay, I keep forgetting to hit my mute button today. It's a combination of all of those things. We do expect the consultation to take a little bit of time. If the complexes can quickly settle in on an option, things can move very quickly. But if we get the case where some residents want bags and some residents want carts, it could take a little bit longer to get those settled. So it's just going to take a little while to get through that. It's going to take, then we have to order the carts and get them delivered. That takes a little bit of time. But probably the biggest reason for 2024 was because we don't have prices in our current collection contract for some of these collection options, and our experience has been if you try to renegotiate that near the end of a contract, you end up with fairly high prices. So we'll try to negotiate prices with our current contractor, and if that happens, we might be able to move a little faster than 2024. But if the prices are outrageously high, I think we're probably going to recommend sticking with the 2024 when the new contract comes into place.
So can I just get a little bit more clarification, because I have a couple of townhouse complexes in my ward that are looking to get some similar services. So I'm hearing two different things, and I just need some help understanding. On one hand, it's like, unless we can renegotiate, the changes will come in 2024. But then also, if a townhouse complex has settled on a solution, then we can implement it right away. Can you just clarify what's going on here?
Sorry, if they settle on a solution that we have pricing for right now, so if they have the transitioning to before 2019 with the three larger carts, I mean, we definitely have pricing for that option, right? If a complex chooses that, the price doesn't change in our contract. If we go with some of the smaller green carts, especially, that could change pricing, because the contractors might have to add workers to manually collect those. So we still have to have those discussions with them, but those are the ones that could have to wait till 2024.
Okay, maybe it'll be better for me to talk to you offline and get further detail on how I can help my two townhouses, and if I can squeeze them into one of your options. So thank you for the clarification.
Sure, and I'm happy to talk to you offline.
Councillor Starr, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Myself again. There's no one else on the board to speak, and I think maybe the intent here, Councillor Innes, is to try to maybe, with the receipt of the report and recommendation, is to maybe also, Norm, check out the ability to speed things along, whether there's going to be a way to process some of the individual requests, which I think has been brought up. And if we can put that together in some sort of a motion, Madam Clerk, or Councillor Innes, unless you have something there, but I usually rely on the clerk to put something together, because I think we've all heard what we'd like to do. And that'll be brought forward to the council meeting anyway, so if there's any changes in between. But I think that would solve, or at least work in the right direction to solve the problems that we see from the individual residents. Norm, are you okay with that? Do you understand where we're headed?
Norm, you're muted again. Sorry.
I have to give him the hand signals.
There, I see. I can see the chair doing that. That's what. Operationally, I have no problems with that at all. And I think, some people could argue there's really three options, right? One is the one we were doing before 2019, and then option 2 is the smaller green carts, and option 3 is the blue bags. But the closer we are to option 1, I think the faster it will go, and the more consensus there is amongst the complex, the faster it will go. But we can work with the clerks if you want, just to make sure that wording is put into the recommendations that go to council.
Okay, that'd be great. I think that's very important. It's just the timing, as I see it, waiting for another 2 or 3 years is it's not acceptable. And let's solve the problems that we have that are there right now. We know they're there. Let's solve those. Okay, so
Mr. Chair, Councillor Fortini, I'm sorry. My hand's not working for some reason. And I hate to interrupt, but I just wanted to ask something. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. So, I understand what Monique is saying, and, on the property tax and stuff. I've been getting a lot of calls in my area saying, we used to get the garbage before, now we're not getting it. And at the end, my property tax does not go down, and I don't get the same service as other residents do. So I get what she's saying. So I seen in Toronto, what they do is in a lot of the townhouse complex, they put the bins. They put 3 different bins, and the city actually picks up the garbage, and they just go directly and dump inside that garbage. Would that be an issue? Because the blue bins, Councillor Mahoney brought some good points, with our bylaws, and it's hard to drag things up. So what they are doing is they're actually putting it directly in the bins. And the city of Toronto, they go by there, they pick up the bins and they dump it out. And it's part of the condo fee, whatever they're lower the property taxes. But really, we're not giving them the service, but we didn't cut their property tax. And that's where I'm getting a lot of complaints, and I'm not getting the service. And I do have a lot of complex townhouse in my area, especially Ward 8. So I don't know if we can look at maybe putting 3 bins there. We're working with the condo corps, and each one puts the garbage in different bins, and the region just picks it up. I started putting it in front of their homes, but we used to pick it up a long time ago. Once the bins came out, these carts, to say, well, you can't have it in front of your home. Well, we can't because they live in a townhouse. We're not picking up their garbage, and meanwhile, their condo fees has gone up, but their property tax still stay the same. So I don't know how we could work this out, and maybe Norm, you could look at maybe what they do in Toronto and other places. What they have these 3 bins in a parking lot, and it's signed, and everyone just dumps their garbage in there.
Norm, you're muted.
If I understand. Now, I just have to say, folks, I'm not the one muting myself. There's somebody else is muting me here, and I'm getting in trouble for it. But if I understand what the councillor is asking for, it's a large garbage bin that everybody can go and throw their garbage bags into, kind of like we have at some of the apartment buildings and stuff. And I know they have a few of those in Toronto. They really try to avoid them as much as possible, because they don't encourage higher diversion, and they do encourage a lot of contamination in the blue box and stuff. So that there may be some complexes where no other option is possible that we'd consider that for, but I think we'd want to keep that as a last resort. But just for the councillor to know, our staff are happy to work with your office and with these different complexes on finding the best solution for every complex.
I mean, I'm getting a lot of heat to this. People have been saying this next year. Now we're going to 2024, and they're saying like, hey, I'm still paying the same service as any other person, but I'm not getting the service. And Councillor Mahoney brought some good points up here. I know it's the bylaws and the cars, they don't have garages through their backyards. But I think, putting 3 bins there, and we go there once or twice a week and pick them up, and it would solve a lot of problems, and it would be a lot faster than 2024. I know a contract coming up. Well, I'll leave that to you. You're the expert, and hope we could solve this problem earlier. Thank you.
Very good points. Okay, I think we've covered. Let me just check the board once more here. There's nobody on. Okay.
Councillor Starr, it's Stephanie. Before we proceed, I just want some clarification on what's being decided today. There is a recommendation in the report that speaks to the options outlined in the report and the consultation plan. Would Councillor Innes's motion be a friendly amendment to that recommendation, or will the committee completely receive the report and present a new motion to Regional Council when the minutes is presented? So I just need some clarification for the minutes and how to proceed forward.
Do we just make it?
That?
So there is a recommendation in the report, and I'll read it for the committee's reference, that the recommendation as outlined in the report reads that the townhouse waste collection options outlined in the report of the Interim Commissioner of Public Works titled Townhouse Waste Collection Options be approved, and further that the consultation plan outlined in the subject report be approved, and further that the staff align the implementation of the townhouse waste collection options selected by the individual townhouse complexes with the new curbside collection contracts anticipated to commence on October 1st, 2024, and further that townhouse complexes requesting to be converted to cart-based collection prior to the new collection contract in 2024 be allowed to do so, provided that the proposed approach outlined in the subject report are met. My understanding is that Councillor Innes's motion was to bring forward the consultation plan as early as fall this year.
Yes.
If that's the case, that can be okay, Councillor Innes.
Can we just amend it so that
Yeah.
the consultation process can begin in the fall 2021, provided the staffing resources are and COVID permits it. We just need that minor.
Yeah.
And I'll move.
If the committee agrees, that can be a friendly amendment to the main motion. But I'm at the committee's discretion.
Councillor Starr, I just had a comment, if I may.
Sure. I'm not sure who it is, but go ahead.
Sorry, it's Councillor Damerla. I was just wondering, in the spirit of what we heard, because the recommendation says 2024 for implementation, if we could also amend that to say to move the implementation earlier. We're moving the consultation earlier to at least try and implement it earlier. So perhaps we could have both those things amended in tandem.
I see Andrea's hand up. Andrea, do you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, what I've heard of the request is that, where it's appropriate, if option A, sort of being the original option, is the choice for the condo board, if that's selected, what I'm hearing is that that can be rolled out fairly easily and quickly. If it's one of the other 2 options, really the proposal is to align the timing with the new contract, both for financing options and also for actual the operations pieces. So might I suggest that there be minor modifications to the actual wording itself, and we could take it as direction to staff to say, we know, we've heard you, that as soon as we are able to, we will undertake the consultation program. There isn't a date in the line item in the recommendation around consultation. We could make an amendment on the back end of the report to reflect the desire to start that as soon as possible. And with respect to the wording in the motion for the 2024 date, we may be able to tweak that just to reference a couple of different options, just trying to be of assistance. But I would hope that my recommendation to the committee, if you'll indulge us, please, is not to commit us to providing all of the options before 2024 because of the reasons we've outlined here. I hope that helps.
So, do I still have the floor, Councillor Starr, or? This
Maybe
is Councillor Damerla.
Yeah, maybe we can hear from Councillor Mahoney first because he's had his hand up for a while. Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess maybe just put some clarity from my understanding. The 2024 is the new waste contract, but that doesn't preclude us from, if we have a complex within our ward right now that would like to convert, that we can't get staff in to have some consultation with the board to be able to try to roll it out under the current
yes.
waste contract. So if Councillor Damerla has a complex that wants to switch over, or Councillor Fortini, and myself as the deputant, Monique was in my ward, I can go with staff to have some discussions with the condo board and see if we can't roll it out under this contract to get the bins out. Am I correct in that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I'm happy to speak to it, but Norman really is the expert. My understanding is, if in that scenario, Councillor, that you've described, if the condo board selects the original option with the 3 carts, that's the option that we can facilitate very readily. If it's one of the other 2 options, then that's sort of being proposed to be tied through the collection contract. Or there may be opportunities with respect to the small green bin. But Norm, I think that's been one of the takeaways of this conversation is if we can clearly outline the 3 options.
Sure, and I think you summed it up pretty well. So the one option is the option we were rolling out before 2019, where they already have the large green cart. They would get a choice of a blue cart and a garbage cart. And that option we can do tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, but we can do fairly quickly. Then the second choice they'd have, if they don't have space for all of that, they could ask for a smaller green cart. And that one there, we would have to talk to our contractor about pricing to collect the smaller green cart if they have to collect them manually. And if we can negotiate reasonable pricing for it, then we could move forward with that fairly quickly as well. But if the pricing is outrageous, I'd be hard pressed to recommend doing that before 2024. And then the third option is to have blue bags for recycling. And again, it would be a matter of discussing with the contractors that, but if they already have blue bags and they need to keep them, we should be able to negotiate pricing fairly quickly on that one. But anytime you change collection, it impacts because they share trucks for different streams. Sometimes there could be impacts and there could be cost implications. And I just don't want to commit council to, big pricing. So I don't know if that helped or not, but I think if you can get a condo complex to agree fairly quickly on an option that we either have pricing for or can get pricing for, then we can move forward fairly quickly with it.
Thanks, Norm. That was really my point, just for clarification, is that the 2024 is tied directly to our waste contract.
Yeah.
If we want to change a complex that currently doesn't use the bins, if they want the bins now, as some might, we can turn that into this contract now, and we won't have to pay any additional costs or any penalties or any of those things. But the 2024 date is tied to when we will be getting a new waste contract, and that will be built into the contract. The price will be built into the contract. So I just wanted clarification on that, and appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, I think we got a yes on that. All right. let me just check again. Nobody else on the, I'm sorry. Councillor Demerla, you're back on.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you for that clarification. Based on that clarification, I don't know if it's just direction is enough, or we can just amend the recommendation to say that staff should go ahead and look at getting quotes for option 2 and 3, reasonable quotes, and if reasonable quotes are available, that we proceed before 2024 with the conversion. So I would like that option. How that's operationalized, either through an amendment to the recommendation or staff direction, I am in your hands, Chair. But I think based on the clarification, I think that would really help my residents.
Maybe I can help. I would think that's a given, based on the comments both from Andrea and Norm, that's what we're aiming for as an overall approach. We can add that, but before they proceed, they'd have to have that in place. Am I right, Norm? Yes.
You're muted, Mike.
You're right. We could not implement those without having pricing for them, but we've heard pretty clearly that the committee wants us to move forward a little quicker with all of these things.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
I think we have a pretty good understanding as to where we're heading, and by the time this hits council, if there's any other further thoughts, let us know, and then maybe, I'm sure there's going to be other discussion from other councillors, but I think we've come to a pretty good approach. Thanks to the councillors who brought those points forward. Okay, Councillor Innes, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, I understand from your comments you want to move the recommendations and other suggestions and directions.
Yes, please.
Okay, any other comments? Otherwise, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the second item, 6.2, and that's Norm. I don't know. It's a report, but Norm, I don't know if you want to say anything with respect to the comments.
I'm sure I can give you just a 2-minute recap of what's in the report if you want. This deals with the food and organic waste policy statement of the province, which was issued in 2018 with Peel's support. In September of last year, the province posted a proposal to amend the policy with a commenting deadline also in November. So staff worked closely with our municipal partners and with service providers, and we submitted comments by the deadline with the proviso that they were subject to approval by council. Today's report, of course, is seeking endorsement of our comments. So many of the proposed amendments are really housekeeping in nature, just providing clarification. There is one area that was a little bit more substantial, and that dealt with the management of compostable products and packaging, and that's where we focused most of our comments. So as you'll see in the report, staff supportive of most of the proposed amendments, including amendments that encourage innovation in new processing technologies to handle compostable packages and products, and including amendments that encourage pilot studies to better understand how these compostable products behave in Ontario's composting system. And when I say compostable products, I'm thinking of things like compostable coffee pods or compostable cutlery. Those sorts of things, and we have participated in a number of pilots with producers already to try to improve the understanding of how these things work. So you'll also see in the report, staff is not supportive of the proposal that municipal green bin programs should accept certified compostable products and packaging, because evidence shows, so far at least, that these types of products and packaging do not fully break down in municipal composting systems or in anaerobic digestion facilities. So we've recommended that the province think about that one a little bit longer. We recommended they designate compostable products and packaging under producer responsibility regulations to make producers responsible for the cost of managing them. We certainly supported the pilot programs and the investigations into newer technologies. We've asked for the development of a provincial standard for compostable products based on real world experience, and possibly also a national standard. We've encouraged producer-funded innovation and development of provincial guidance material. So for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. And you'll see in the next report, we also talk about compostable products. We're also talking about it in the Blue Box regulation because they're talked about in that regulation. And our position is quite clear, and we've talked with council about this before, that they should be subject to producer responsibility regulations where producers pay for the cost of managing their products at the end of life, and that there should be standards for them, and that they should not be forced. Municipalities shouldn't be forced to accept them in our blue or our green bin programs until some of these other things are in place, just because experience shows it leads to contamination, and that ends up costing us a lot of money. So I'd be happy to take any questions on this.
You're first on the list.
Sorry, who was that? You were cut off there.
Councillor Sinclair.
Oh, thank you. I had a question about the breakdown of the whole notion of composting, and you're mentioning that some products don't break down obviously quickly enough. So what are we looking for? Are we looking for something that breaks down within 2 weeks? Obviously, we don't want something that disappears within 1,000 years, right? So what are we looking for there and to make these systems work so that we can collect them properly and deal with it? No one hear me?
Norm, can you unmute?
Sorry, I heard you, but I was muted again. Most municipal composting systems, and including the private composting systems in Ontario that treat municipal, whether it's yard waste or green bin material, they usually have retention times from beginning to end of a few months, 2 to 3 months. So, we have in our system, we have kind of a primary system in boxes that is measured in weeks. Depending on our capacity, we could be up to 3 weeks, and sometimes as low as 2 weeks in that system if we're putting a lot of material through it. And then it goes to an outdoor windrow type of composting system where we usually have at least 8 more weeks of processing. So that's kind of the time frame we're looking at. If, for example, if it took twice as long, we'd have to keep material twice as long in our system, which means we'd have to build twice as much capacity to allow that to happen. So that gets very, very expensive. So we're hoping that they can get something down closer to that timeline, and if they can't, then there has to be a way of deciding, who pays for the extra cost, and do we have 2 or 3 composting sites in Ontario that all this material gets shipped to, or that sort of thing. So those discussions, I think we need to still have with the province to make sure that they don't force us into something that's going to drive our costs up.
So this is the kind of consideration you're referencing by an evidence-based system. Is that the idea?
That's the idea, yeah. And the province is I think amenable to that. They are hiring consultants right now to start studying and do some pilots or do more pilots. And we've been approached, and we're quite happy to help with that by participating in pilots and showing how long it takes for these materials to break down.
Okay, thank you.
And Councillor Innes.
can we make sure that when, after this report is passed by council, that a copy of it with an explanation letter is sent to all of our MPs and PLs so that they're aware of what the region's position is on this and what role they play as our MPP?
Good idea. Okay, I don't see anybody else on the board. Can we have a mover of the letter? Councillor Sinclair. All those in favor? Carried. And the last item we have with reports is the comments on the federal discussion paper, integrated management. Norm?
Sure, and I'll just quickly go through what's in the paper. In October of last year, the federal government released a discussion paper entitled Proposed Integrated Management Approach to Plastic Products to Prevent Waste and Pollution. Comments were due in December, and staff prepared and submitted comments by the deadline, again with the proviso that they were subject to council approval. The discussion paper, it included a number of things for plastics, including minimum recycled content requirements, improved and expanded extended producer responsibility for plastics, and a ban to restrict harmful single-use plastic items as early as this year. And some of you may remember they talked about straws and things like that. And shortly after the paper was released, regional council actually adopted a motion in support of the proposed ban. So we commented on the rest of it. As you'll see in the report, staff is supportive of most of the proposals in the discussion paper and recommend that the government again use evidence-based management framework to identify harmful plastics. This report also talks about biodegradable and compostable plastics as alternatives to single-use plastics, and we just cautioned the federal government about doing that before proven composting technologies are available and before producer responsibility programs are in place. Other than that, we didn't have a lot of comments on it. I thought it's a positive move relative to the direction we've received from council before, and on reducing the impacts of plastics. So I'd be happy to take any questions that people have.
Okay, thank you, Norm. Let me check the list here. I don't see any questioners. So, Councillor Mahoney, will you move the report and the letter? All those in favor? Carried. Communications, we don't have any. Other business from any members of the committee? And in camera, we don't have anything. The next meeting is on April Fool's Day, Thursday, April 1st. And as usual, if that gives people heartburn or if enough of us are missing, let us know so that we can reschedule. But other than that, good meeting, a lot of work to be done. And I think, we've had this ongoing, especially the carts. I mean, I have the same problem that every one of us has. And I have to tell you, and some of us older folks will get a kick out of this. I went to one older gentleman's garage, and he said, lift that cart off the wall. I couldn't lift it because what he was doing is filling it up full of garbage all the time. And then the funny part is he said, you scratched my Honda, you bought it. So I said, that's it, I understand the problem. So Matt, I know what you're going through. Anyway, good meeting, and call for adjournment. Councillor Mahoney, all those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. See you soon. And I guess we'll be discussing some of these things at the council meeting. Thanks again. Thanks, Andrea, for your input.